Hi, Michael, Charlie. And Rachel, if you can make me co-host, please. Excellent, thanks. We'll get started shortly. Actually, being a little early. Hey, Jason.
Hey. Hey, folks.
Dami is the only one that reached out and said she has her child has an appointment that she needs to join him because I'm sure he can't drive at this young age.
Unlikely.
4 or 5, whatever, however.
We went to go get my son a passport. He
Oh,
also cannot drive himself to go get a passport.
yeah, understood. And I'm going to be right back. Okay, how you doing?
Hey, I'm good. I'm good. Nice to see you all.
Besides Dami, are we not expecting anyone else? I cannot.
Sydney. I think
Sydney.
Sydney's the only one left.
Okay. Good. Hey, hey.
And right on cue.
Hey.
Hi.
Hey.
I spoke with Jackson earlier today, so caught him up to speed. And
Hey, Jackson. Good to see you again.
and James Wright is also going to be joining us from community development. Bailey cannot. So just as trying to expedite the process as soon as quickly as possible. I think we're ready to go.
Um, did you want to get started? I know I called the meeting, but
Sure. No, that's fine.
thanks for everyone. Thank you everyone for coming. I appreciate it very
Yes.
much. We have a lot to do, so we'll get
Yeah.
into it.
Yeah. No icebreaker. We're just gonna jump right in. So we wanted to uh, check in with you. We've had a lot of stuff going on via email, but wanted to pull everything together since we have you all have about 2 weeks to complete whatever you want to complete. And so just to recap, from the beginning, it was our intent to have you all work on a Google Drive or something like that, or something so that you all had access. That legally is no longer lawful. Uh, the recent legislation at the state went into effect on July 1st, redefined what a meeting is, and it's now any deliberation. Google Drive emails back and forth, people just kind of exchanging things, editing, all that. That is now called deliberating, and any deliberation is a meeting. So we, I think Jason was absolutely fair, as Sir Sydney and all the current or members who've been here a while. This is a pretty laid back group. But and we've never really, you all have never really had to make a decision. It's let's put more solar panels in the county. This is a little bit different. And so we're also learning this. So I apologize, trying very hard to make this work, but we've also never had to do this before. So in this process before, I'll put it that way. So um, what we're forced to do now, again, it's not ours, is do this. Any editing, any pulling together has to be in a public forum like this. And so uh, I wanted to just address the editing part and then also get into the document as making sure, and I already found out I made a mistake coming out of the gate, and I'll share that in the notes here in a sec. But in essence, your whatever uh, feedback, perspectives, recommendations, all of that still need to be in by it's technically the 22nd, but I also, we also need to pull that together. And so I would say the 18th or maybe Monday the 21st. Um, but whenever the last time you meet, that will be the official document. Again, whatever that is. And it's still up, whether that's consensus or by vote, whatever, but all the language has to be the same. And that's kind of the process of what we're going through. I want to start there. Anybody have any questions?
What do you mean by all the language has to be the same, or we just have to have a
No,
final?
I'm saying final thing.
Yeah.
I'm trying to be as open as I possibly can. If it's very specific and you don't have consensus, then we have to vote. And do you want to have a minority report? Like this could quickly fall down a mine shaft. This is your decision. If it's less text and you all have consensus about it, or if you want to vote, that's fine. But that's where it is. I mean, it is now the limiting factor is deliberations need to be in a public setting. Now, we technically could have a Google Drive that's open to the public to watch you all play with words. That's I'm talking to council. That's not exactly off the table. I don't know how efficient that's going to be, depending on how long the document is. But at this end, the public can watch you all edit and wordsmith and use the sources and all kinds of stuff. But that's kind of what the new law is forcing us to do. Please do not think for a second that we're not kind of smiling behind the scenes that in an effort to have more transparency, it's basically shutting all these groups down to not be able to do anything. So unintended consequences or whatever the road to hell is paved with. So that is the boundaries. And then I also want to review the documents and how I process what you sent me. But that's I can get the law from our county council who's out of the office, Jackson. But good question, Jason. I think I interrupted you. Okay. Jason is also on. So he is from our community development. He was here last time to answer any questions or provide from the planning commission's viewpoint, those kinds of things. So thank you, James. Again, just to expedite this process. Okay, so I'll get that law to you or whatever the specificity, Jackson. As far as process and what it is that I'm sorry, I keep saying wait. I was thinking myself along with you. What you are going to do. The law said, or like I said, this is our code, correct me, James, is that you provide recommendations, which is plural, to the planning commission, and the planning commission is the one that makes the ultimate decision. That can be in the form that you all, well, we had to do it behind the scenes with, not behind the scenes, but James and I and Sydney discussed a framework that we talked about, but we didn't dive too much into the details. But taking notes, those were the categories of that document that I sent out that you provided comment to. Then what I did was to aggregate. Hopefully you will see all of your comments in there except for one, and I'm going to have to I'm going to wait until if James has any comments. I did completely unintentionally leave text out that was not in one of the grids, and I apologize for that. It was completely unintentional. I was just going grid by grid by grid, and I'm going to copy and paste that and put it in the chat. Uh, um, as you can see from the report one that I sent, and I hope, Michael, you at least got the links to the documents. Good. Okay. We're going to get you fixed, I promise. But this is a whole nother wrinkle. That is the one you will see that it has by category. I'm just looking it over here. The reason why I broke them into rows is that's what whoever sent it to me, that's what they put in there. Some people didn't put, fill in all of the rows, and that's fine. That's absolutely fine. I copy, pasted, put it in, and organized. And so you can see the second one was from Jason, and you and I have not had a chance to talk since then. I think a couple of email, but that's about it. Is obviously pretty different, and fine. That's absolutely fine. I will say we can get into some of the details. Remember that depending upon how you go down, any deliberations or editing, depending upon how big this is, will have to be in this kind of a form. And so I just want to set that expectation up front for you to consider. We also have comments or suggestions, James and I, on the content in and of itself. Before we get to that, Charlie?
I have to unmute myself. I just have a question about what gets presented to the planning board or commission. Should it be succinct or verbose? Because I worry about, I'm in the world of okay, let's just get to the point. And if we make it really long, it seems like less reading will happen. James can speak to that. I mean, I know legal stuff can be really long, and I don't know what the planning commission is looking for from this subcommittee, committee, advisory committee.
Yeah, I'm happy to take a stab at that. Jason, if you want to actually,
You go first.
Okay. It is kind of a unique basis on far as report writing to planning commission. You want to say the most impactful thing you can in the least amount of words without missing anything. So it's a double-edged sword. With respects to being as so verbose with your findings or any thoughts, maybe even subjectivity, it's best to narrow it down on a factual, conceptual, direct forward basis. So if you have concerns regarding leachate, recommendations for approval or denial would be blank, and then with additional monitoring. Very cut and dry. And you could go down deeper into the weeds regarding how you'd like to monitor it. But again, to the planning commission, when I write my reports, it's typically very factual, very direct to the point. Hope that helps.
Does that answer your question, Charlie? And everyone?
I'll
Before I
comment.
go, I'm sorry, Jason, please.
Yeah. My personal intent, or at least, what I like to lead as chair is, I think some sort of statement, within one page, hopefully like half a page is what I think we should aim for. And then we can have addendum as far as most of this document report that we currently have, I would consider to be an addendum. I think we should formulate some sort of statement, giving some sort of recommendation, be it consensus or vote, and a few of those important points keep it very succinct so that they can read it very quickly. And then if they want to, or if they want to dive into it, and if we want to back ourselves up with evidences and other commentary, we have that space within this long list of things we have. I do want to include all of that because I think it's important to hear all of those sort of parts of our voice. But again, I don't know that anyone would want to read that very quickly. So, and I think that jives with what James and Sean are intending to be helpful for Planning Commission, or at least what has been recommended.
Yeah, Sean, I'm gonna jump in here for a split second, then I'll let you. But yes, Jason, that is pretty much exactly how I structure my reports when I submit them, is direct findings with addendums, supplemental information, memos from external agencies. So that is very, very true.
Keeping ours like an executive summary, I think is the best way to sort of have that initial letter. You'll see in my report, my letter is not short. I don't think that that's the short version of that. And also writing at 3 a.m. is not my forte on being succinct. So that's on me. But I think including voices as we want to is important as addendum if we need to. Okay,
So
Sean?
then, and I think this should be my last or second last, because I don't want to dominate this, but we did want to let you understand like where we are now since the last meeting has kind of changed a little bit. The other issue is the recommendations, what it is that you're providing. As we were talking last time, our county council really dove into the code. I talked to James as well. It says recommendations, which is what where there were many in the report. I'm looking because that's where it is. The report have approval conditions, set mandatory monitoring, blah, blah, blah. You can read for yourself in the report part. So one option is to have something like that. Here are the 12 to 15 topics that you all feel are important that the Planning Commission should absolutely look at. And then what your thoughts are on each. So instead of, an overarching, that was one. And I'm just sharing with you the perspectives of the commissioners, staff, and our community development, and with Vance, our county council. That's kind of what we were envisioning at the beginning, that we've been saying this since last summer. This is not a PhD. This isn't an 80-page PhD diatribe or anything like that. It really is, hey, these are the 15. I haven't counted how many you came up with. These are our thoughts. This is what we think you should do about it, and hand it to the planning. Tight, short, digestible. If you want to go to an overarching recommendation of for, against, or approval with conditions, or as an overarching, your call as well. The question is what is the addendum going to be? Because currently there's not a consensus when you read both documents side by side. And what's the process of you to get there? And I am doing everything I possibly can to go Condoleezza Rice here, diplomat, objectivity. I'm not trying to, but if you all go down that road, I'm just being your staff member to say, again, everything has to be in this sort of a forum by the 21st-ish. So I'm giving you options. I'm giving you the perspective of what we were thinking, which is the report with side by side. These are the 15, and then there you go. Have at it. So and the other one is, and as James said, the more you write should be objective and not subjective, and making sure that describing things in general, or with there's some language that we want to make sure that you are as effective as possible. So any questions on that one? I want to make sure you have an understanding of your options. It's not one. You can let this slide. And I think, and the intent was, and I'll end with this, understanding what the process has to be, and the fact that you all have 2 weeks. The report one is kind of what was what we are thinking you can accomplish in 2 weeks in this forum. There's not a whole lot of text. We can, type away, I can edit right here, and you tell me what to do, or we do it again where you send me your thoughts, I compile, and you all go next Wednesday to come up with your final thing, whatever your thing is. I think, James, did I miss anything? Process what? Okay. Okay. So I'm giving you those background context, whatever down you want, and any questions. If not, Jason, you're on.
Okay. Thoughts on what Sean and James have said so far? Okay. So, having glanced at a fair amount of the report that everyone else that Sean has prepared, I have a few other questions I want to address. I'm curious.
Oh,
yeah.
I forgot. James just texted me. Don't forget for 1 nanosecond that you as an individual can provide whatever you want to the planning commission. It's going to be what, James, 3 weeks or something of open comment, or it's not going to be 20 minutes.
Correct. James. Yeah. So I didn't want to jump into the meeting, so I apologize. I sent Sean an email on the side, which pretty much states that I just want to reiterate exactly that there is public comment forum. And if for any reason, in any way, shape, or form, you feel that your thoughts or your insight wasn't obtained during this process, there will be a forum for that. I just don't want that to go unnoticed.
I said that a couple meetings ago. Thank you, James, for reminding me. You can write whatever you want as an individual. You have every right. Well, if we have a free country still, if you want, and so that's completely up to you. So sorry about that. Thank you, James, for reminding me. Thank you.
So, okay, a few things. Thank you, Sean, for bringing all those comments together. I think I did have a question since I provided mine a little bit late, and somewhat separately. They're being presented separately. I am curious if some level of authorship needs to be attached to those comments, because there is currently not, and it is either stripped out or otherwise absent. It is the ENRAC board that is doing that. I just think we should probably be consistent.
That's very fair. That was a time issue. I want to make sure you had time. I apologize. Absolutely. I can go back, and in the next iteration you see, I'll go back and put in the names of each one. Thank you. And I didn't mean, again, that was completely unintentional. It was just trying to get things to you as quickly as possible. Absolutely fair point.
And I'm not sure if it's a question, if we want to deliberate about that too, of do we want to have our authorship attached to it versus not? I think it helps the discussion for ourselves. I don't know that it really significantly matters either way. But
it doesn't.
We should maybe think about that.
Yeah, it didn't. It was the start, and with all respect, there's no diss on this. It was just a stark formatting difference, and that's the only reason. So I can absolutely put your, I don't think it matters where it is, and I can put your comments in when I have a few minutes to, and I can, like, all the abbreviations, I can put that in the title or something like that, and just make it that I can format, but not change anything.
Yeah. Okay, so that was one question. I did want to bring up a discussion point as far as there's a lot of approved with conditions and denial kind of language that I think has been suggested, as well as I think those are the formats used previously. I don't know if those are, I forget where those come from, other than those are the kinds of, I think that's what the planning commission is going to eventually determine, whether or not what their assessment is of the cup. which makes sense for us to provide, but I think there's different ways of doing that. My understanding is that, and please, anyone correct me if I'm wrong, the language we currently have in the report is not particularly detailed, which is why I have so much detail in mine. And I have a feeling, and I think it bears some discussion of, if there's no enforcement mechanism, and if approved with conditions if those conditions are not met, there's no action plan. And I think we have a lot of those. And I think it's not particularly helpful either to the planning commission or ourselves in providing the report, that if we don't have a more clear sense of what that like, we need more monitoring, or we should have a commission set up to have all this detail provided, but we have no sort of framework to make that make more sense, to have an action plan, to what if they fail, what if they have a mixed success, what if they if analysis goes through, what happens if those are not met, and who enforces that, etc. James, I think you have comment.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna add some reason I'm coming on here twice, so bear with me. Can you guys still hear me okay? All right, I'm in two places at once. This is great. So what I have added in the past on reports, and this may help you in this situation, Jason, is conditions of preliminary approval that have to be met before you're granted final approval, and then conditions of operating approval. I hope that helps provide a little bit of guidelines if that's something you want to incorporate within yours.
You said operating approval?
Yeah, conditions of operating approval.
Okay. Interesting.
And to add on to that, and James, Vance and I were having that exact conversation. He had also said you can, there can be language that says it's approval, but like for odor or for methane, X amount of emissions has to be capped in 2 years, and then otherwise it is taken away, or you can put a limit or in a year. Again, what that means is up, can't go back in time either. So it's just kind of, but that is according to Vance, James, that's an option that can be put in there.
So I guess it bears some discussion, and I'd like to hear from the Charlie, you had your hand up, and Sydney. I'll stop.
So my first thought was about Sean's concern, which was that we kind of need to address whether this is consensus or whether it's going to be a vote, because I can tell you straight up that I am a denier of this cup, period. And so unless the entire group has a consensus in the same direction, which it sounds like there was language in there that talked about mitigation, the consensus is going to be like, I'm not going to ever concede or ever be part of that consensus. And so I'm thinking maybe consensus is the way to go, or vote, but if depends on how you look at this, majority is consensus, or if people are nodding or whatever. But I'm going to be straight up, because I think it sits on wetlands and we shouldn't expand it. Period.
Thank you, Charlie. Sydney?
Yeah, I was just gonna say I completely agree with what you're saying, Jason. Excuse me. And I also just feel like I personally didn't have enough time to work on that. I don't know about anyone else, but
I can corroborate that.
I feel like it would also just be helpful for us to kind of like discuss our sides, where we're coming from, because I don't know, I really like what everyone had to say, and I feel like it'd be better for us to like get on a consensus if we kind of talk about it, or I don't know.
Yeah, well, so consensus models are tricky. As chair, I'm going to help you lead through this a little bit. We're governed by Robert's Rules of Order, which is actually not a very good consensus model, but I don't know that we have to play by those rules precisely for a lot of the purposes that we need to do these decisions. there's contention observed, myself included. I'm still fairly neutral, but I do have some definite concerns about recommendations and approving and denying the cup. You can read my report. Anyway, so what is worth discussing is how we want to make that decision. I think having it was actually suggested between Sean and I that we have a straw poll about where we're sitting right now, about what we feel like, and it's non-binding, and we can change our minds still, but we can see where everyone is sitting as far as like, do you want to approve or deny, or do you want to make a lot of recommendations about conditions? Those are like the three main options as far as a vote can go. Consensus building is a different kind of process, and it's hard to do, takes a lot of discussion, and that's where we all get onto the same page about what our recommendation is. And I think some parts of that can play sort of in tandem. We can come to consensus on our report fairly easily if that report contains enough of what we want to say. As far as a yes/no vote, it is extremely difficult to come to a consensus that way if in fact people are, like Charlie has just said, and you know, for a lot of people included, it's going to, when it's binary, it's very difficult to have just a consensus kind of vote without a lot of caveats and a lot of conditions. And that does take time, and I don't know that we have quite necessarily all of that time to really get into all of that. Maybe we do, or we could try that. I think it'll take more discussion. I think it takes reviewing a lot of these documents. It takes that time that, Sydney, you mentioned you want to have, and I do too, and I'm exhausted as it is. So I'll shut up, Sydney.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, like, I know definitely a lot of us are like against this cup. And I was just wondering, like, do you guys think it would be helpful if, like, say in our recommendation we say the cup should be denied? Like, would it be helpful to still, like, I think, like, in the addendum or like somewhere else to like write up, like, I guess, like, mitigation options as well, anyways, because like it's not our say if it's going to get approved or denied. And so I don't know if the board or whatever would even commission would even look at it, but I feel like it might be helpful to just have that information anyways, in case they do look at it. Maybe it'll plant a seed in someone's head. I don't know. I just whatever you guys think.
I'm gonna jump in here if you don't mind. Sydney, great point. So when we make recommendations from the staff level to planning commission, we provide motion for approval or motion for denial. We make our recommendations. Sometimes in the historic past, there's been, if it's approved, it's subject to these conditions. So that could be added as an addendum in there or encompassed within the report as well.
I'll note briefly that as chair, I can actually not bring motions to the table, which is interesting, but that's what it is in the bylaws. That doesn't mean that a lot of the other people can't, and I believe I can second motions. It could be that we bring a motion to vote on approval, denial, or approval with conditions. I think that's a very viable motion, but I think there's still a lot of room on building out a report that we can still talk about. I'm going to check my notes and let that sit for a second. To your point. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say really quick, like, I would be totally down for a vote, but I just want to, like, does everyone like feel like prepared to have a vote? Like, I don't know. Do we have your opinion?
I think it's easy to call for a straw poll. We could definitely do that, and that could give us a sense of how everyone is feeling very quickly, and it's still not binding. And we can still like develop argumentation or indeed discussion after that. I'd be happy to entertain that idea. Charlie?
So I was hearing from Sydney that she was looking at denial with conditions. Like if approved, we would like to. So that was kind of an additional thing that I know James was, but it seems like James had comment about that from a legal standpoint. I think the Planning Commission is just looking for a yay or nay from ENRAC, and then beyond that, they're going to do whatever they do. But there's going to be like documentation of why we make the decision that we make. And then, well, anyways, that's what I heard Sydney say. Sydney, is that correct?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. I'll note in my report, I don't expect anyone to have read it by now because it got sent out today. You might take a look at my section on methane emissions and greenhouse gases at some point, not necessarily right now, but if you're welcome to. And in it, I have like an outlined kind of paragraphs of all the sort of points I make. And my sort of assessment is very conditional denial in the sense of there's all these things that seem to be in the way of approving easily and confidently, and those are sort of my way of saying if you fixed all these things, maybe it would be okay. But these are clearly present problems, and because of what I said earlier about the conditions being enforceable and actionable, I'm not sure that I feel comfortable yet approving with conditions if I don't know how that process gets undertaken. And as a recommendation to the Planning Commission, I think that makes sense to be like, I think a lot of more process for how to understand and look at a cup reapplication would be more appropriate than to say this application is okay with these conditions. Now, I think with the light that James provided, different kinds of conditions were not on my radar. And I think all of that could still be very helpful to provide to the Planning Commission so they can make that decision more with more information, better informed decision. To point, one of the reasons I called this meeting is so that we might have some sort of additional process, and one of the options for collaboration that was not necessarily clear to me is to have subcommittees. We can create subcommittees of up to 3 people, and they don't have to be public meetings in a sense. The tricky part is that I'm not sure how a subcommittee and what they would necessarily do. So I think we should get clarity on that because so much of what is happening is deliberative. We would deliberate on so many different aspects of data inclusion, document inclusion, organizing thoughts, revising language and such that I think would constitute deliberation. So maybe, Sean, you can remind me too of what can we do in a subcommittee and what should we not do in a subcommittee? And is that a helpful thing that anyone would like to participate in? I don't think more than 1 or 2 subcommittees would be necessary or helpful and might have some time in order to do some of that activity. But I think that activity is somewhat limited, and I don't even know if we need it as much as we think we do.
So when you and I originally talked, and then talking with council, and looking at and sharing that template, the grid, whatever the document you all filled in, it would be like 3 subcommittees would look at a handful of each topic and combine. Like, this is a report. This is what you all think each should include. So I'm just randomly hitting monitoring. Okay, huge concern, need for expanded and more. I think strong. So they would take a cut or a report of how to mush those together and then send, because it is going through that, but it's not necessarily making the decision. And it's more formatting. Then it comes to you all and you look at it and then all the wordsmithing. What I'm hearing though is different. It sounds like your decision was pre-made, and then now we're going through the documentation and how then it is kind of, I'm trying to organize, like how would we organize all these blocks? That's a different question that I wasn't thinking of until like 5 minutes ago. And so I'm trying to process that through. If you are leaning toward, carte blanche statement, whatever it is, and then you have all these addendum, I mean, it could just be copy paste, here you go. I don't think that that's very, and James, I'm asking you, I'm a policy analyst, I would like a little bit more like, not even consensus, but like, what's the story as a whole bunch of like sentences here and there. That would be very time consuming. So I'm just trying to, but yes, you can, as long as there's no more than 3 or less, and it's more formatting and calling together, fine. And then it's a report. Like I gave you a report, James and Bailey and always like, that's what you do with the planning committee. Hey, I paste it, put it in, here's a report. I didn't, except for, oh, Charlie, I apologize again. And we just call it all together. So I think what this would, I'm trying to help you all expedite or at least hone in on what you want. If you're going to make a decision, like a single overarching decision, approve, deny, approve with the conditions, whatever, then I would recommend having your documentation mirror that so that the planning commission has an understanding of why you thought about that. Now that could be a subcommittee. It's not really adding any text, but your recommendation is X. Next section, these are the reasons why we think so, you think so. And then, as Sydney said, these are the other issues you should consider in the case of you go opposite of how you all recommend. Now that could be more of a jumbling of, like a reorganizational subcommittee, not necessarily making too much text. Does that make any sense at all?
I'm not going to say it's super clear, but
Okay. I'll just put it this way.
Close.
I am not telling you what you're going to do. Let's say, listening to what you've said for the past few minutes, you say you are going to deny. You recommend denial. Here are all the reasons that you all have identified and in your report of why you should deny. And then a second section of all the reasons why, or all the topics/issues that you identified that should still be considered in their decision. Kind of getting what Cindy was saying. Hey, if you are going to approve, don't forget about this. Or if you are thinking about this, I'm randomly again thinking of what happens if it doesn't. What's the regional issues? What is the economic? What are the rate paying issues? They're not going away. You should still consider this. So that's where I, as a policy analyst, and James, I can capture what you had said earlier. Those are issues that the planning commission is going to consider anyway. So that I think gives validity. So that's kind of thinking like 3 sections, your decision, why you decided this, but there's no market that is going to allow rates to go down in the situation if it is. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just saying, as a trained economist, the rates are going to go up. Is that enough of a reason why to deny? I'm asking the question. I'm not guiding you in anything. I'm just saying I could envision 3 sections like that, and maybe a subcommittee could just organize it in a way to present to the next meeting. James, I think that on the legal side, James or Vance and I have talked about that. From your perspective, how far off am I giving something like that to the planning commission?
I'm thinking of report structure. So I'm envisioning this as Jason mentioned. And first, I'm going to address one item. I think everyone notices there's my name under my signature block. There's also another name. That other name is Bailey Payne.
Oh.
I just want to acknowledge that
Oh.
Bailey didn't have a link, so I sent him mine. That's why I'm in
Gotcha.
2 places at once.
Gotcha.
So I'm envisioning the report being submitted to Planning Commission. It would be, a summary and then followed by your recommendation. Could be what recommendation. This is what we believe. Second section could be, if we go this other route, it would be subject to these conditions back and forth. The report structure that would be all the attached supplemental information would probably need to go hand in hand with how that approved with conditions section would go. Similar to how you're writing staff reports for findings.
So, it does sound like a subcommittee could be helpful if we had our sort of preliminary report pieces in place, like if we were really satisfied with where that document was going, then a subcommittee could help reorganize that and put those into better format and organization and extract from that small parts to put into a summary. But it doesn't sound like they can do a lot much more than that
At this point.
at this point.
Yeah, I will double check with Vance. I mean, you do what you want. It's just a little deviation from what Vance and I were talking about. No
Mhm.
issue with that. First off, tomorrow I can incorporate and kind of reformat,
Yeah.
Jason, your comments in here, so it's all in one. I can do that. Then if 3 of you or 2 batches of 3 wanted to, it's up to you, want to take it and see how that would work in that kind of a recommendation, why we said that recommendation and other things to think about, then rock and roll.
Sydney?
I'm proposing that we take another week to like add more stuff to what Sean sent out because like as you can see Jason's is like twice as long as everybody else's.
And I
And
only covered
I
like 3
definitely
things.
think that it needs more detail as well. And so like I don't know, like next week maybe we could have like a subcommittee meet to like reorganize or something. I don't know.
So, point of order, we have our regularly scheduled meeting next Wednesday.
Yeah.
I am planning to call for a special meeting just to get it on the books for the following week on the 16th, just so that we have that as backup at least. And I think we're going to probably need it to be a remaining special meeting. But those are the 2 meetings that we can deliberate in, and those are likely the last times we can meet publicly and do that. I think those 2 will be sufficient. And let's make that happen. Because after that, I think we're going to be super exhausted. The subcommittee is unique in that it can meet outside of those times. And that's part of the impetus to have a subcommittee. If they can get some of that work done before either of those meetings, that would be helpful. To your point, though, I think it is a good idea to have more time to consider these things. Add more detail, refine our report as necessary, refine your sections, give Sean some time to incorporate all of those aspects we talked about, and then get that back to us soon. The other thing, I had a lot of supporting documentation to share with you all, and I think, Sean, I'm not sure how to do that, other than to say, how do we do that?
I think that the easiest way would be to do what I do with Michael, which is you give me the documents, then I create a web page that you would never find on our web page, and then just send out the links.
Okay.
And that would be easy. Now, how that would be incorporated into your report, I need to check with Vance to see how that is. Does this need to be in a special website or something? I just don't know what the legality of it. you'd still have access to it. It's just, WordPress creates a link and then you have to go in and link it within the website. These just aren't linked anywhere. So that's all it is. So I can, if you want to start sending me the files, I can start creating that.
Okay. I'll just note that since you included my report unedited, the share link for my Google Drive is already on there. Now you can't access that, but everyone else can.
Yeah.
They already have that. So you have access to the documents. How to include them officially in our final report as addendum is another matter. I will send them along to Sean all the same, and then you can already start reading them. So they're available if you have Google access, and I can help you with that if you email me. But if that works, then we can have shared documentation. It does seem like a strange process, to say the least, to just share a file. But I understand. Okay. What else?
Oh,
Go ahead.
I thought you were, I'm sorry. I thought you were actually asking me what's next. I just want to give plenty of time for you to let me know what needs to be done,
Yeah.
when, and get into some of the logistics. And there's one more item that we haven't gotten to yet, but I want to focus on Jason.
Sure. Access to documents. Does the Sydney's idea for continued revision and writing out detail make sense for people? Do people want that? I want to hear from people that haven't said anything, especially, and buy-in from other folks. I know there was some complication with Michael's submission. I hope that got resolved, and I think Sean and Michael are working that out. It sounds like Charlie's stuff finally got through. Does anybody want to take a straw poll this meeting, or do we want to wait till next meeting when we have a little bit more weight through us, or time to mull things over? I saw Jackson had a thumbs up. Anyone
I would
else?
love to hear where people are thinking.
Mhm.
Charlene shared where she's coming from. I think maybe Sydney shared in part, but I think a straw poll of where folks are coming from would be very useful.
You want to make that a motion? Can you make
Second,
them? No, I can't motion. You have to make the motion.
a motion that we do a straw poll.
Fantastic. Second?
Second.
Great. I say we do a straw poll with show of hands. It'll be easy enough. Let's start with what categories do people want? We want approval, approval with conditions, denial, anything else?
Do we want like denial with conditions, or is
Denial
that
with
like
conditions.
already like a given?
I'm not sure how denial with conditions works.
Yeah, that's
I'm
not going
gonna
to be
jump
helpful.
in there.
Yeah, go
That's the
James.
problem with
Oh, your
denial.
wheelhouse, bro.
Sorry. Denial is just straight denial. That's no expansion. That's just denial. It wouldn't be feasible to do a denial with conditions.
Yeah. My understanding is that if it's denied, there could still be a further cup introduced at a later point in some degree, but we can't do anything about that just later down the road if they make another revision and make another cup, because that's what happened the first time around. They revised their cup, resubmitted it. That's why we're here right now. So yeah, I think denial with conditions doesn't make sense. I think the question is, and I do like the idea of having in a report, even if we have a vote one way or another, that we do have, I think I liked Sean's outline of, we have our reasons for denial and approval, depending on what we vote upon, but then we also have these approval with conditions ideas that the planning commission should definitely pay attention to. And I think we've outlined a lot of that in our report currently. I think that makes a good amount of sense. I think that accommodates a lot of what we want to say, even if it's kind of saying multiple things at the same time. Does that make sense to everyone? Great. Okay, so I'll call the vote. Let's have show of hands for approval with limited commentary. Maybe a few, you know, we can make an approval statement in the sense of approve the cup. Here's a few thoughts in a report. Show of hands? No. Okay. Approval with conditions, and we can outline those conditions. I think because it's been introduced, we can have a number of different kinds of conditions, preliminary, operating, and otherwise. Approval with conditions. Vote on that. Michael and Kit.
Can I express just a little bit what my conditions are?
Yeah, let's do that.
My fear is that my understanding is that this expansion extends the life of the landfill for, it's like 5 or 6 years, some really trivial amount. My basic condition is approval with all the mitigation stuff we've talked about, but then that's it. That's done. Use these 5 years to come up with a new plan, a new landfill, and we're done with that site. It's closed up. That's my condition.
And I think that bears some articulation, but noted. Charlie?
I just wanted Michael to know that they are currently digging out a section on their existing property that will extend the life of the landfill by 5 or 6 years. And then this would be an additional on top of that. I don't have my days, my hours correct necessarily, but there is an existing pit that they're digging in the gravel right now on the, and Sydney saw it when she did the tour also.
Yeah, I was on that tour.
Oh, you were on the tour too. Oh, I'm sorry. And so they were already doing that, and then this other area they want to do. So I kind of think they're kind of thinking it's going to be 11 years or so.
I believe that's what they put. It was 11 to 12, I thought, in the reports in the cup.
But I believe the conditional use permit removes the cap for how much they take in.
Yes.
So they could close it a lot sooner, depending on where they get their refuse from.
Yes. And I believe that is a good point to make in the report. Did anyone else want to comment on conditional approval? I saw 2 hands.
Yeah, I actually like not a lot of comments though, but like my vote for this is mainly based on no matter what, if they're gonna approve it and then gonna forward with this, maybe like our condition will be a kind of lighthouse for like how to make it more sustainable in the coming days, kind of thing. So it's like I'm trying to like thinking in the perspective that our recommendation can be less damaging in the days to come. So I know like
It got garbled. Less what?
Less damaging in a sense, yeah, in the sense that like in all those sectors like air pollution to greenhouse gas emissions to everything, like almost I have like conditions for everything straight, like okay, you need to have at least certain amount of this thing to be done in order to expand or something like that, right? So yeah, it's a hard choice, but yeah, that's how I'm feeling.
Understandable. Thank you for that. Okay, let's call the vote for denial. I see 4 hands. In lieu of time, and because I think a lot of that's going into the report, let's put those conditions and rationale for the rest of it in the report. Okay. I don't want to go over too much of our hour because I know everybody's got things to do. Let's get to our last action points. To the question of the subcommittee, does anyone want to meet with the subcommittee to help sort of try and hash some of this out? To do a bit of that, I'd be willing to do it. We need at least 2 other people, and we can give it a shot to help get a little bit further organized and support Sean in that effort. Yes.
I'm hearing 2 methods here. A few minutes ago, it was Sean. I very rarely use third person formal. Sean aggregates everything. Jason's yours in here, and have one Tolstoy thing. Like everything all together, and everything is in one. And then we resend it out for comments. My question is, I would not be able to get this out until tomorrow, like tomorrow afternoon, and then have people think about this or do research. Sitting, I think you were saying something like more specificity. If you wanted to add more things to it, that would have to be Monday or Tuesday. I don't know how much a subcommittee could do. Respectfully, you do what you want, but I'm just, my little mental logistics head is going in. I'm not sure what a subcommittee could do at that point. The other option is that I send that out and you all call about it, think about it, and add it in. And then you spend next Wednesday maybe coming up with an actual formal decision. And then the subcommittee formulates it based on the decision. So then that's more, and then that little subcommittee could write a report about maybe language, proposed language, and those things, and then you all talk about it, and then you wordsmith on whatever the following Wednesday is, or whenever the time you meet.
I
So
was definitely thinking more of the second one.
Okay.
I don't know
Okay.
about other people.
I think that makes more sense as far as having the report collated as you have done, Sean, and then the subcommittee can help work on the summary kind of ideas.
That I think would give, this is my thoughts.
Yeah.
That would give you more direction, and then whatever that last meeting is more of last minute wordsmithing or that kind of thing.
Making sure we have at least consensus on the report.
To target that, yes.
Yeah, okay. I like that idea. I think that makes good sense. If that makes good sense, it sounds like we can probably wait until next meeting to decide about that subcommittee because there's enough to do until next week. But think if you want to be on that subcommittee, I'm happy to serve on it, but I also don't need to be the only voice. And we can decide that then. Is that good? So happy with that? Okay, great. Last minute things. What else, Sean? There was something else you wanted to talk about.
I did. And talking with James and Bailey and others, I am absolutely respectful. I have supported community groups for several years in different capacities. As James said, subjective language usually doesn't help in some of these decision makings and longer. Again, I'm being very respectful. I'm trying to be objective. I will put a comment bar under each one for you to make comment on what's already there. And if this is going into a report and you say that you agree with the report, then you should at least tacitly agree with the language in it. And in reading over some of the language, there's a lot of subjectivity that is not help me, James, not like a specific point. I don't want to hit anything specific, but it doesn't help identifying public service as you're characterizing. That's irrelevant, and it's legally irrelevant because it's just about the expansion. And so anything like those lines, and talking to James, that doesn't really help the planning commission. Section 2.57 of the EPA code means you can't do that. Kabang boom, like spot on. But in that comment, or you could even use track changes, and I'll send this out in Word. Review this and the last one is, I don't know, Jason the last page is that language as a potential prologue or whatever that is, then you all have to be okay with that, and there's subjective stuff in there. I'm just sharing with you.
Yeah.
Once. So James, I heard you come up, and I know we talked about this, but just as a planning commission perspective. So I didn't want to interrupt you.
Yeah, so you're absolutely correct. And I'll speak it from my experience, is that when we have, and I think Bailey's jumping off right now, so that's the other James. um, when we have public comment testimony, and I put that word as testimony, saying somebody is developing there, and a neighbor says, I just don't want that in my backyard, and that's completely fine. That is testimony. In contrast, if someone said, hey, that's not allowed to be there per a specific statute or per a specific code or ordinance or a DEQ regulation or etc., that can go into the report and be addressed and analyzed. It's the subjectivity that we try to avoid proposing, if that helps. Be objective rather than subjective.
So I just want to make sure that when you're voting on it, you're not just voting on your thought or your recommendation. You're voting on the report itself and anything included in that. And you all would have to, need to read everything and to make sure that you are in entire agreement with everything. So I just letting you understand that that's what we wanted to share.
What I want to say about that, and please do also correct me if I'm wrong. I understand what you're saying, James and Sean, and I do really appreciate, and I look forward to tagging and making spaces or showing where you think subjectivity is very high, especially.
Okay.
And so we can look at certain things like, can we refine this language? Can we bring it to a certain level of criteria or a specific kind of datum or reference point at least? The caveat I want to say to that is, as much as I know that we can have personal commentary towards the cup, ENRAC was tasked with this body in mind. And while I realize that is a sort of legal standing, there's a certain part of me that wants to say, you chose us, so you get all of us. And it could be that if we want to make sections of the report that are personal statements, as members of the board, I'm fine with that. I do think making sure that subjectivity in the process is noted is important, because I don't know how well that will be received by the Planning Commission. But at the same time, like, I philosophically have trouble with objectivity. So being a thing that we can really get to easily. And so some of that's going to infiltrate as it is. I think managing that is key.
So I will sit down and respectfully ask James and Bailey for us to go through the comments so far. And I think that's completely fair, Jason, to identify what we as, policy analysts and planners and all these are seeing. No, that's purely subjective. And I appreciate what you said about personal statements, because that's what we did at Talks Trash. Every member had their opportunity. And if you want to, and I mean this respectfully, howl against the machine, rock and roll, man. I mean, each one of you could have your own section, have your name by it, and say, these are additional comments. That would take away, and then you're not really voting on the report, but it is giving you a voice. And then that way the intro is just 3 sentences. Here are the things that support your recommendation. These are the things that you should also consider. And then these are just personal comments by each member that wants to.
Yeah.
So, James, is that?
Yeah. Which, yes, again, not overlooking the fact that there is going to be public comment period.
Exactly.
Just want to stress that as much as possible.
Right.
And again, ENRAC's comments or recommendations are going to be right along with everyone else. And
Right.
so there's no pecking order. You're going to be, and I forget what the title is, James, us and DEQ and whatever those interested parties or technical parties that Paige, I forgot what the actual name is. So, again, you're not making it. You have every, by making the decision, but you have every right as residents to, or I guess anyone to make these comments on your own.
Sounds good. But yeah, I do appreciate that review of subjectivity. I think the sort of initial report that half page I've been talking about would make the best sense to be as tight and succinct as possible with a great deal of tight argumentation. Okay, I think that's good said.
Can I just review real quick before you?
Yes.
You step one, I will aggregate. Step two, add in. I want to make sure that there's no thoughts of us leading anything. I just want to be crystal clear on what you're asking of me. I will include comments, like an extra bar of your comment of anyone else, and then or additional comments. Put all those together and then send them back out to you, and you send back to me. It would have to be. We have to provide materials and everything 24 hours before the next meeting. So this, you would have to get it to me by, and Tuesday is it would have to be by noon on Monday. So this is a very quick turnaround. Just to prep you all, this is very quick because of transparency laws, which is great. That's fine, but it's going to be 24 hours.
Though, so any revisions we want further with additional documentation or revisions to our reports by noon Monday.
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm going to do everything I possibly can. I do have meetings tomorrow morning to get this out by tomorrow morning or by noon. I'm going to try my best. And then next Wednesday, you figure out, kind of the formatting, like if you want to do an official decision, fine, and then take the rest of the time to organize, whatever that is, that's up to you. And then once, I would recommend that you come to consensus or vote or whatever on specific next actions for that subcommittee to complete. That too will have to be done by Monday at that following Monday. If you could, at 4 of you at least have to meet on that following Wednesday. That could be an hour. It could be 10 minutes. You review it, you like it, boom. So that's going to be up in the air. But just to set expectations, did I say anything that was inconsistent with your expectations? Okay.
So far, that sounds good.
Okay.
And then so we'll call a special meeting for the weekend following or the week following for the.
I don't have.
16th.
Sorry, Jason. Okay.
April 16th, so it'll be the week after next, our last meeting date. And that will be the final revision point. There will be the subcommittee will have submitted whatever they wanted to. We'll review the final report, do any final wordsmithing and editing, and then we'll have our final report done by then. I think that makes good sense. I think it's a minimal amount of a subcommittee work on the weekend for one day if they need to. And then we can have that final vote and include all of what people need to in that report. Comments, thoughts? All sounds good?
Cool.
Cool. Thank you so much, James. Thank you so much, Sean. Anything else before we adjourn?
I think we're good.
Can I even motion to adjourn? I don't even know if I can. Whatever.
You're good. you can
We
go.
want to adjourn.
Yeah, we want to go do other things.
Michael's seconding. We're all good.
We're good. If anyone needs any support from me, please feel free to email me. You should be able to find it.
Thanks, guys.
Have a good day.
Everyone.
Thank you. Have a great week.